Ever since I beat Bloodborne, I've been itching for a game that captures its atmosphere. Lies of P came close, and despite being a fantastic Souls-like, perhaps the best, I didn't get the sensation I got from Bloodborne. It didn't have to be a Souls-like. Any genre worked for me really, as long as I could get this feeling of dealing with something dangerously ominous, involving horrific creatures that will make you question whether you're out of your depth. That is when I ran into Dredge. In November last year, I had the unfortunate idea of paying for a PlayStation Premium subscription. There was a decent discount and I saw some games I wanted to play that if bought separately, I would have spent much more than I paid for the subscription. I'm not calling it unfortunate because I was ripped off. In fact, I actually got a bang for my buck. I'm saying it because I don't support PlayStation's most recent decisions on how to ruin their business and their customer service. However, what I do support is including Dredge in that catalog. So, how come I was browsing a list containing the likes of Death Stranding, Blasphemous 2, Nine Souls, Another Crab's Treasure, Dead Cells, all excellent titles? Why did I get obsessed with a fishing game like Dredge? Because it gave me everything I was thirsting for after 5 years of squeezing Bloodborne like an orange. So what is Dredge even about? You're a sailor who receives a new ship and must pay for it fishing different sea life species. The tutorial is very normal, but once you finish it, things take a turn for the Lovecraftian. Our sailor runs into a mysterious man who collects powerful eldritch artifacts, and that becomes the main mission of the game. To visit every biome that contains an artifact that will grant your ship supernatural powers. That range from more basic abilities like going faster for a few seconds, to shooting a sort of energy blast that kills every fish in its way and instantaneously stores them in your boat, saving you the time you have to spend fishing them manually. The fish that you catch are very important, because as a sailor, your main source of income is catching and selling them to the town's fishmonger, or the merchants that you find anchored at the different biomes. With this money, you can improve your boat, not only to be able to store more fish inside, or catch them faster, but also because of them. Here's where this game becomes awfully similar to Bloodborne. Your character is a person susceptible to seeing things they wouldn't dare to believe they're real, and that means he'll react accordingly. The game features a day and night cycle, and as we've seen in games like Dying Light, the day is somewhat safe, while at night, you have to run for your life. During nighttime, the more random events the game throws at the sailor, the more insane he becomes, which consequently increases the number of random harmful events. We're talking about fishing ships that look friendly from afar, until you come closer and the fog reveals a gigantic anglerfish that tries to wreck your ship, eyes looking at you from the fog, whispers that feel like someone is talking to you in real life as you play, and Lovecraft's favorite, an enormous tentacle that emerges from the water and tries to swat you. A good way to measure your sanity level is the eye you have at the top of your HUD. In the morning, you can see it closed, meaning your sailor is calm, but as he progresses through the day and becomes tired, it slowly starts opening. And as I said before, getting hit by those random events will worsen this meter. The key to keep your fisher from going mad is respecting his resting time. No matter the time you go to sleep, he will always wake up at 6 AM. But of course, sleeping from 11 to 6 is not the same as from 5 to 6. Sleeping for 1 or 2 hours won't reset his neuron frying, which means you have to adopt the unemployed schedule of waking up at 11. But that's just as detrimental to your real life as it is to your gameplay, because you want to make the most out of your daytime before the nightmares out there come out to play at night. Something else that I wanted to mention is that the NPCs in this world are as insane as they can get. Out there, crossing the puddles that separate these islands, you can find unusual people with curious requests. On the opposite island from where you start the tutorial, a dock worker has to receive a package from a strange person who won't show their face. It is mentioned repeatedly that the package is leaking a darkish fluid and its contents shouldn't come out of the package. When you deliver it to the worker and wait for some hours, he comes back completely transformed. Where once we talked to a lively-looking man, now we see a pale, emotionless man stained with black goo. We'll never know what was inside of the package, but we can be sure it was something humans shouldn't have stuck their noses into. Also, in the Iron Rig DLC, we have another situation where humans go too far, leaving their curiosity unchecked. The doctor of the rig asks you to bring new specimens of fish that have appeared after they drilled the bottom of the ocean. More than once, they had the chance to think, maybe we're a little in over our heads, let's pull back. But greed got the best of them. And eventually, after overextending his experimentations and the clear visual signs that they were changing him for the worse, the doctor ends up becoming a mutated fish creature, who doesn't have a place being among humans anymore, for which he jumps out into the bottomless sea with his newfound curse. As you can see, knowledge is dangerous, as much as it is in Bloodborne. That danger represented by the unknown is a common theme in stories inspired by Lovecraft. Actually, horror in general. There's nothing scarier than what we can't comprehend, and both Bloodborne and Dredge prove we're right to be afraid, seeing how people lose their minds and bodies altogether. The two characters I just mentioned from Dredge are mirrored versions of the Healing Church, especially the scientist. In Bloodborne, this faction is formed by a bunch of scholars who believed that they stumbled upon some miraculous ancient blood that they could transfuse into people to heal them. Needless to say, the cure was worse than the ailment because Yarnites got addicted to the old blood, and finally, it transformed them into beasts. Now that the streets are filled with aggressive beasts seeking blood, people hide themselves in their homes just like the townsfolk in Dredge reside in their islands, relying on people who can help them push forward. In Bloodborne, those are the hunters who go out during the night of the hunt to rid the streets of the beast's scourge, and in Dredge, those are the sailors who know how to navigate the sea well enough not to be sunk by the creatures lying below. There are sort of bold merchants that connect the islands, trading resources so the communities can thrive without risking their lives going out in the deep water. This brings us to the isolation theme, which is also a present topic in both of these games. For everyone who has played a Souls game before, obviously one of the most popular feelings is the one of solitude. Every zone is infested with enemies that want to attack us. Hunters, beasts, aliens. We rarely find an ally, and when we do, their stories rarely end well. Dredge adopts the isolation and pessimistic theme, but not to such a high degree. Islands are far away from each other, but there's always people inhabiting those locations, except for the Hellish Island, where the temperature is too high for anyone to live in it. Also, it's true that there are creepy quests with unhappy endings, but also some others like the dog you bring to that scientist to keep her company while she works, or the engineer who you can help build their own place on a different island. And finally, I can't forget about the soundtrack of these games and the heavy lifting they do. Upper Cathedral Ward would still give me the creeps without the track, but it would be just that, a scary place. It wouldn't have transcended into Souls history as the scariest location ever in any Souls game. To no one's surprise, Dredge also relies heavily on the music. From the first moment you start the game, and you start talking to people in that initial town, you know this is not just a regular fishing game. There's something obscure going on here. And a few minutes later, when you get to Little Marrow and you listen to this, it becomes apparent that you're in for all sorts of aberrations, monsters, crazy people, Cthulhus, and Leviathans. Briefly, in Bloodborne, us players are asked what happens when humanity reaches too far into the cosmos. Dredge asks the same question, but instead of looking up to the stars, it asks you to look down into the ocean, and somehow that's just as terrifying. And that's why I think these two games are a match made in heaven, because their atmospheres and the way they address the sensation of biting more than we can chew is excellently done. Even though the dangers in Bloodborne are much greater, we can't forget the hunter is also an enhanced human through the blood, and the link with the Dream in the Moon presence allows him to draw strength from many sources to defeat his preys. In Dredge's case, our sailor is a simple human making use of some artifacts that don't even allow us to kill our enemies, merely wards them off for a few seconds before he's being chased again. So Dredge relies more on the horror thriller genre, since our character isn't capable of doing as much as the hunter can. Don't take that as a jab to Bloodborne. The fact that an RPG is scarier than some other games who try to rely entirely on the horror side speaks volumes of this game. I can't say I ever felt tense while playing through Resident Evil 3 Remake for the first time, except for a few cheap jump scares with the lickers. And that game is primarily marketed as a survival horror experience. So, what's the verdict, comrade hunters? Will you give Dredge and its deceivingly cozy atmosphere a chance? Or will you pass on a gem because you're not interested in fishing games? I don't want to judge, but if you're passing on it, I think that would be one of the worst mistakes you'll ever make in your life. And speaking of worst mistakes, top 5 worst mistakes you can make in Demon's Souls coming soon. Stay tuned and take care. Bye, friends.